Okay, this is chapter 9. This is section 9-5. This is recording number 3. Okay, so we're talking about the p-values. I just explained in the previous video what does a p-value mean. I reminded you of what that means, okay? It is a little more complicated. You just got to do one, and once you do it, it's not as hard as it looks, okay? And as he says here, you have to look through all of the F tables to find, oh, I'm sorry, you look through all the F tables for the specific degree of freedom n, that's degree of freedom for the numerator, and the degree of freedom for the denominator. So suppose as a certain test, you have F is 3.58. That's your test value. The degree of freedom numerator is 5. The degree of freedom of the denominator is 10. So you look for each of those tables. So like, for example, you go to let's take 0.05 as an example. Okay, so let me go to that table. So 0.05, right here. Okay. Okay, now this is what you should be doing. I mean, just get your book and read the material, go look at the tables and do what I'm doing here, okay? So on this particular one, the concept or the premise was that, okay, alpha was 0.05. The degree of freedom of the numerator, DFN, degree of freedom of the numerator was 5. The degree of freedom of the denominator was 10. So we wanted 5 and 10 right there, 3.33. That's what I claim is the appropriate F value for degree of freedom denominator 10, there it is, and degree of freedom numerator of 5, there it is, for a corresponding to an alpha of 0.05. What did I just say? Okay, it's right there, 3.33. Okay, and there it is, 3.33. So you do the exact same thing for these other ones. So for each of those alphas, so you do your little table here. The biggest alpha is 10, 10%, then it's 5%, then it's 2.5%, then it's 1%, and so forth. So you do your table here, and then what is the corresponding F value? Okay, so now you have your little table. Well, now it's very simple from this point, because for a F value, for test value of 3.58, where is it? Well, is it between here and here? No. Is it between, see, these are the F values, right? So is 3.58 between here and here? No. Is it between here and here? No. Is it between here and here? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it is. It's between 3.33 and 4.24. That's where this guy is. So the F value is somewhere between, or the F value is 3.58, the corresponding P value is somewhere between 2.5% and 5%, okay? So that's what he says right here. The P value for a right tail test is 3.58 is between 2.5% and 5%, between here and here. Okay, so this is the way we would normally write that. For a right tail test, you would reject the null hypothesis at alpha is equal to 0.05. Well, why is that? Because the probability of getting this is somewhere, the p-value, the probability of getting this particular number of F of 3.58, the probability of getting that is somewhere between 2.5% and 5%. That's very unlikely, right? So if alpha is 5%, you'd say, hey, I'm going to reject the null hypothesis because it's so unlikely that I would get that particular probability, okay? All right. So you get it from a calculator. It's going to be more precise, obviously. It's going to be 0.0408. For a two-tailed test, alpha has to be doubled, okay? So it's going to be, the p-value is going to be not between 2.5% and 5%, it'll be between 5% and 10%. So once again, you would reject the p-value. For that particular p-value, if the p-value between 5% and 10%, if that's less than the alpha that you were interested in, then you would reject the null hypothesis, okay? All right, so, it's doable, it's feasible, but In real life, we don't do it that way. Okay, in real life, we use a calculator, but it helps you understand these tables if you do these. So I'm going to let you do this example on your own. It's exactly what we did just above there. And that wraps up section 9.5, and that's the last section of this chapter. So chapter 9 was, just if I could put it in a nutshell, chapter 9 is hypothesis testing. We're testing various things, means, proportions, and variances, but it's the scenario in chapter 9 of where you're comparing two samples, brand A to brand B. Take the medicine, don't take the medicine, boys versus girls, whatever it happens to be. Whereas chapter 8, you're comparing a sample to a population. So even though the tests have the same names, even though the process might be similar, that's the fundamental difference between chapter 8 and chapter 9. And if you don't understand that, you will not be able to get these problems right. Okay, so make sure you understand that concept. Every single problem, talk your way through it. Look at the exercises is my advice, and do as many as you can. And we'll see you in the next chapter.